Japan's spiritual traditions began with magical practices. Early Proto-Shinto priestesses, often women, served as intermediaries to the kami, spirits. A famous example is Queen Himiko, a 3rd century ruler who was a high priestess and witch queen living in Japan. She was described by Chinese records as a witch queen who occupied herself with magic and sorcery, bewitching the people. However, I would only take anything the Chinese said regarding powerful, influential women in those days with a grain of salt due to their derogatory towards such women. In ancient Japanese society, Miko, or female witches, would enter trances to convey the words of kami, or the spirit world, to the world of mortals. These priestess mediums performed oracles and rituals at early shrines, laying the foundation for Japan's magical heritage. It is important to note that while onmyoji, witches of vibratory magic, were elite court diviners, Japan's countryside still teemed with original witch priestesses. Villagers continued to rely on local shamans and sorcerers for everyday needs, healing maladies, praying for rain, or expelling evil spirits. But these practitioners did not use the title onmyoji, or sometimes referred to as onmyosha, for women, although onmyosha does not specify gender. They might simply be known as Miko, if female, or other regional names, and their practices were regarded as separate from the highly formal onmyodo, or witchcraft. In essence, by the end of the Heian period, Japan had a dual spiritual system, an official cosmopolitan onmyodo for the nobility, and a plethora of regional shamanic traditions among the populace. In this era, distinctions between orthodox religion and folk magic blurred. A Yamabushi, mountain warrior monk, might recite Buddhist sutras to expel a possessing spirit, or a village Miko might use a kami oracle to diagnose an illness. Such syncretism was a hallmark of medieval Japanese religion. Similarly, in many rural districts of Japan, Miko who were unattached to shrines became wandering mediums. Some were called Aruki Miko, wandering shrine maidens. They traveled from town to town performing prayers, divinations, and ritual dances. These itinerant Miko often carried sacred objects like gehobako, prayer boxes, and acted as psychic mediums, conducting rites such as hearth purifications, kamado harai, for households. However, because they lacked the oversight of any shrine, some wandering Miko fell into disrepute. Historical records from the Edo period show that certain Aruki Miko also worked as entertainers to survive. This indicates that by early modern times, the once sacred role of the witch priestess had in some cases become marginalized. Mochizuki Chiyome is a legendary 16th century Miko Shinto priestess who is said to have been a kunoichi, female ninja. Although the name kunoichi at that time was not used, instead the word matahari was used, which symbolically translates to the hand that holds the needle. The word kunoichi was not used until the Edo period and only became popular in modern times, and the word matahari was eventually forgotten. Lady Chiyome's name first appeared in the 1971 non-academic book Investigation of Japanese History by Shisei Inagaki. Origins and family. Mochizuki Chiyome is described as a noblewoman and a poet from the mid-1500s, married to samurai lord Mochizuki Moritoki of Shinano's Saku district. She was allegedly descended from the famed Koga ninja Mochizuki Izumo no Kami, the Matahari network. After Moritoki's death in 1561, Fourth Battle of Kawanakashima, Takeda Shingen reportedly took her under his protection and tasked her with forming a covert network of female agents. Lady Chiyome allegedly recruited vulnerable women, orphans, even prostitutes, and runaway girls, posing as a caring mentor while training them as spies, seductresses, messengers, and assassins. These women were taught to pose as Miko, geisha, servants, or courtesans, enabling them to travel and gather intelligence undetected. Her network reportedly grew to 200 to 300 agents. Disappearance from records. After Takeda Shingen's death in 1573, Lady Chiyome vanishes from historical documents. Her fate and that of her network remains unknown. Theories range from violent suppression to voluntary dissolution. Edo authorities, influenced by Neo-Confucian morality, discouraged such freelancers, yet despite occasional crackdowns, folk shamans remained active. Legends and local chronicles mention many kinds of magical practitioners, herbal healers, mediums for fox or snake spirits, and on the fringes those rumoured to practice cursing sorcery, juboku. These individuals might be called by different names in different regions, yet they fulfilled the populace's need for spiritual counsel and magic outside organised religion. As late as the Edo period, officials noted wandering Miko who performed mediumship services across the country. These Agato Miko, or Nonno, as folklorist Kunio Yanagita called them, were itinerant female shamans often affiliated with popular shrine cults. For example, spreading the faith of Kumano Gongen of the southern court system. They carried their Yorishiro spirit vessels with them so they could invoke deities anywhere, and performed prayers, divinations, and sometimes sacred dances for villagers. In many provincial dialects, these roving mediums had special names. Inawa in Kyoto, Tojiba Hanashi in Shimane, Kitsune Tsuke in Saga, and so on, as recorded by ethnographers. Overall, Western and Central Japan did not preserve as many distinct local shaman titles as Tohoku or Okinawa did. Instead, people might refer simply to a Hitoshi, prayer master, or use the general word Miko for a medium. Meiji suppression and modern legacy. The end of the feudal era brought radical changes to these esoteric traditions. The Meiji Restoration, starting 1868, aimed to modernize Japan and elevate a state-controlled form of Shinto, while stamping out so-called superstitions. In 1870, the Meiji Matsu officially abolished Onmyodo as an independent practice. The ancient Bureau of Onmyo was disbanded, and the last hereditary Onmyoji, the Tsuchimikado family, saw their state role eliminated. Similarly, in 1872, the new government state banned Shugendo, mountain aestheticism, condemning it as a primitive cult. Yamabushi were defrocked or had to merge into mainstream Buddhism. The traditional Miko, too, underwent transformation. They were no longer allowed to perform trances at shrines. Under state Shinto reforms, Miko were refashioned into shrine attendants who performed dances, Miko-mai, and assisted male priests, but were not to act as oracles. Thus, they are no longer half of what they used to be. Newspaper editorials of the era disparaged these women, likening Miko witch priestesses to prostitutes in deceiving the public. Despite such hostility, folk report for shamans never entirely vanished. Even during the Meiji years, rural communities quietly continued to consult trusted mediums and oracles, as long as authorities turned a blind eye. Japanese shamanic practice has proven resilient. From ancient Onmyoji diviners in the Heian court to rural Miko and Yamabushi wanderers, and from Tohoku's Itako to Okinawa's Yuta, these practitioners have adapted to changing times. They went from holding court rank to being vilified as evil witches, yet many of their rituals still survive or have been reimagined in the present day. Each major historical period left its mark. The court of classical Japan elevated on Myodo. Medieval syncretism produced mountain holy men and medium priestesses. Earlier modern society both patronized and policed folk witches and shamans. And modern Japan alternately suppressed, then nostalgically revived interest in these esoteric arts. Although keep in mind that the original Miko priestesses came from Queen Himiko. She was an Etruscan queen, and the original Miko were also part of the Oborozuki clan. And if you want to know more about these Miko, then please purchase a copy of my book series, Shadows of the Oborozuki. Thank you. I am Shigana, also known as Frankie Traino. Hail and farewell, and blessed be.